Okay, welcome back to Fit as Fanny. I'm Sam.
Oh, I'm Jem.
So last week we talked all about my mental health journey. So this week we're gonna discuss Jem's and her real intense journey that you've had.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's been an adventure.
I mean, it has really been a journey for you, hasn't it?
I mean, yeah. So, I can remember being a kid, like young kid, and being like, I hate my life, kind of depression sort of thing.
Really?
Yeah, like I've been, I remember going to the Peace Centre for counselling when I was like 7.
Oh,
but
wow.
My parents split up when I was 7, and that had a huge sort of impact. And what was I, 9? I was 9. I was not 7. I was 9. My parents split up when I was 9, and then that was it was a bit challenging. It was a bit messy. To be diplomatic about it. It wasn't the easiest of separations. I lived with my mum. Didn't get to see my dad as often as I would like. Had real issues with sort of like staying over at anyone's houses and having really bad anxiety with that. I think just because when I was at home, that was my only sort of like safe space, or the only space that I thought was safe, because everything outside of that was made to be unsafe by, a certain parent. But yeah, so anyways, and then when I turned 13, moved to Australia. And I think that's when it all started to go a little bit haywire from there. Moved to Australia with my mum and, for all intents and purposes, my stepdad, who wasn't so keen on kids. We got on really well. He taught me how to drive. As I got older, we got on really well. As I was younger, he had to get used to living with a child, which is very difficult in itself. I'm a fair.
And then you're also then getting used to living with another father figure.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Somebody that is supposed to act like, mimic a father figure. So
yeah.
I mean, imagine that as a transition in itself.
Well, we'd never lived with him before either,
No.
so we literally moved over to Australia, and he moved in as well. So that was really difficult. And I struggle, like there's a lot of, and I don't know whether this is like a self-preservation mechanism or whether I was just quite young, but I don't really remember anything from Australia. Yeah, it's really weird. Like
I've kind of done like, I'm gonna block this because I don't.
I can tell you really small snippets, but I couldn't tell you who my teachers were, what classes I did. I couldn't tell you, like, I can't even really tell you the layout of the school.
Wow.
I can tell you like little bits. I can't tell you.
And that you were there.
I was there for 5 years. I can't really tell you, even like, just little, like the name of shops or the name of places where I worked, or like there's a lot that I just completely blank. Completely blank. And I think, so the main thing is I developed really bad anorexia when I was over there. Really, really, really bad. To the point where I had to go to an eating clinic, but that was a load of bullshit because I have a huge issue with eating clinics. And I get why they are necessary, because your body doesn't have enough fuel to challenge the beliefs that you're in. So you need to fuel your body so that your brain can function better, so that you can challenge your beliefs.
Yeah,
and I get that. Pathways. But same again, prevention is always better than cure. That's the cure, which we don't force obese people to restrict their eating. So why are we forcing anorexics to eat? And especially
because realistically, anorexia, correct me if I am wrong in saying this, but anorexia is a symptom of something that's underlying.
Yes. And my issue was control, as we begin. Shock.
There is a running theme.
There's a theme here. We should have called the podcast Control. My big thing was control. So to then have to go to an eating clinic where food, the only thing that I could control, was then being taken away from me again.
Yeah.
Well, it defeated the purpose. Plus, it completely defeated the purpose because I used to put batteries in my pockets. I used to drink.
To weigh you up a bit.
Yeah, so I put batteries in my pockets. I'd drink like 2 litres of water before I went in because that was 2 kilos straight away. Like, oh yeah, it was.
Because at the height of that, like you used to like weigh everything within an inch of its life, food wise.
Yes, 100%. And you know, I'm 5 foot. So I probably struggled with it from being 14, 15, right the way up. I'm going to say until I was 25, when I fully thought, you know what, I'm not in this anymore at all. And the way I can see, so I can see exactly almost the moment it started.
Right.
Exactly. So I used to get told off if I got upset when talking to my dad on the phone. So I didn't see my dad for 5 years. I wasn't allowed to, not for legal reasons or because my dad did anything wrong, just because that was the rule implemented by other people that I had no control over. My dad did nothing wrong. It's not like a law system or anything. It was just something that happened. It was the way that it was, and I had no control over it. So I used to go for a run, and there was like this foreshore that I used to run along, and I'd take my phone with me, and I'd speak to my dad on the way there, and then, and this is going to sound really sad and depressing, but a red crying face looks the same as a red sweaty face.
Yes.
So I'd speak to my dad on the way there, get really, really, really upset, and then run my heart out on the way back. And my mum, no one knew that I was crying. People just thought I'd gone for a run, and so I didn't get in trouble for speaking to my dad. But that's how I got into running.
Yes.
It went from running, you know, a couple of times a week to having to run every single morning for a certain amount of time. And it got to the point where it was really bad. Like, I'm 5 foot, you know, 50, 55 kilos. At the time, at my lowest, I got down to about 35, which is the size of a 7-year-old child.
Yeah,
like, it's
not
nothing. You know, my period stopped. I couldn't sleep. I weighed everything out. I completely eradicated carbs from my life. I wasn't allowed to eat unless I'd exercised. So it got to the point where I was exercising before every meal. And I would start.
And that was something that you put on yourself when you're saying you couldn't eat before you'd exercise. That was something that you took control over and you'd implemented on yourself.
100%. I went vegetarian so that I could control that aspect as well, because that meant that living in a house with meat eaters, they wouldn't cook my meals for me, which is how I wanted it, because then I could make my own meals and they had no control over that. So for me, it was 100% about control. There was nothing in my life at that time that I felt like I could control, and there was a few things that I desperately wanted. I wanted to, you know, come back to the UK, I wanted to visit my dad, I wanted to do X, Y, and Z, and I just was not allowed to. So it just escalated. It wasn't like a conscious choice. It wasn't a conscious, like, I'm going to lose weight. It just escalated. And then I think the other thing that I absolutely, at the time, I loved is people worried about me.
Right.
Which I'd never really had. So, or I felt like I'd always been told, you know, your dad loves you in his own way, or, you know, there's certain things that would allude to certain people not caring about you. I'm trying to be very diplomatic here just in case certain people hear it. But the thinner I got, the more people cared about me. Yes, it was in a bad way, it was in a negative way, it wasn't in a healthy way, but it was more people, you know, like a kid will kick off because they want attention.
Yeah.
Whether it's good attention or bad attention, whether they're getting told off or whether they're getting praise. For me, it was the thinner I got, the more people worried about me, so the more people cared about me, which for me at the time was incredible. And then I came back to so when I was 18, or just before I turned 18 in the February, I came back to the UK for the very first holiday I've ever had, in the December.
Yeah.
And I started eating chocolate again. And like I started realizing that actually I was losing weight, so I needed to gain weight, so because we were snowboarding, and so I started to really manage it. But then when I got back to Australia, certain things happened that stopped all of that. I went completely back into my old ways. I was exercising all the time. No one was at home all day, so I could just go out whenever I wanted, go for a run. I'd do 2-3 hour exercise training sessions. You know, I'd live off carrot sticks in the day. Like, food couldn't be cooked. I had like all these weird, and this is the weirdest thing. So these are the things that I can sort of remember is the rules that I had. So I had to eat at least 1 raw meal a day. So like, couldn't be cooked. I couldn't eat unless it was on the hour.
Wow.
So if it like hit 1 o'clock and my food was ready, I could sit down to eat. But if it hit 1:01,
you wouldn't eat.
I would wait until 2 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
And it started out the half hour, but then it waited until the full hour. And I couldn't eat before 8 a.m. or after 8 p.m. And I remember going out for a meal one time and having like a full-on anxiety attack because it got to like 7:45 and the food still wasn't here. And I was like, well, if it's after 8 o'clock, I can't eat it. And just
wow.
So to the point where like when I was at work, I worked for a cinema, and you got like specific breaks. I would rather take my break at like 4:30 than rather it be at 8 o'clock. And so I'd rather eat at 4:30 than at 8 o'clock. And yeah, it was just, it was a lot. And if I didn't exercise, I mean, I always exercised in the morning, but and to the point where I'd sleep in my running clothes so that I had no excuse, like I'd just have to get up.
Wow.
Yeah, and like, so then I moved back to, once I'd been on holiday to the UK, I went back to Australia and I was like, do you know what, I'm going to apply to do study abroad.
Yeah.
So I did, and I got in as a home student at both because I've got dual citizenship. So I came back, went to Manchester Uni, and started doing all right for a while. I was all right, you know, getting settling into things, getting a little bit better. I still wasn't great, but like my housemates would make a lasagna and I'd have a little bit, and you know, so it was fine. And then I don't really know what happened. It was a real struggle initially for my dad and my stepmom to have me back because they'd had 5 years without me. You know, I went away as a teen. I went away at 13, came back a young adult who was very, very, very poorly and had very strict regimes and like ways of doing things, and so that was really difficult to deal with. And I don't really know how or why, but it just got to the point where at uni I just got really bad, like and I didn't go home for like a year because I didn't really want anyone to see me. I probably dropped to somewhere close to 34, 30.
Yeah, some of those photos are scary.
If you follow me on Instagram, there's some, I mean, I look dead. Like, I genuinely look dead. My hair started
to look like a corpse.
Yeah, I
look scary.
So some of those photos, I look, you know, like a dead 7-year-old when actually I'm 19, 20, 21. My hair started to fall out. I started to get like, you know, the downy fur that you get to keep you warm. I would wake up with bruises the next morning because my rib cage would be poking into the mattress. And I would exercise, and I mean, I would exercise for like 4 hours a day by this point. And I'd stop doing things. So if my friends were going out drinking, I would not eat all day just to be able to go out drinking with them, or I would not eat all day, and then it would get to the evening and I would decide that I was no longer going out because I was that hungry and I wanted a little bit of food. And by that I meant like I had like 2 egg whites and, you know, some veg, or I would weigh everything out. I would pick slices of ham and I knew how much was in each ham, and, you know, how many olives I was allowed, and like so many things. And it was all consuming. And I remember when I was initially trying to fight it, when I was going to the eating clinic when I lived in Australia, it got to a certain point I was like, this is just too hard to fight, because every single like mouthful you took, or there's someone in your head saying, this is gonna make you fat, this, you can't do this, this is gonna make you fat. And yeah, okay, you know, the body image is a symptom of it, but it's not necessarily the root cause. And it's not really got anything to do with aesthetics. Yes, I was so paranoid about gaining weight and I didn't want to gain weight, but the reason for that is because I wanted that control. And if I was, you know, if I looked dead, people would worry about me and all of these things. So along with all of that, obviously came depression. I was on metazapine at the time. Probably didn't help that when I moved back, I just went, okay, I'm not going to go on this anymore, and I just stopped taking it.
Ooh.
So that probably didn't help the situation. I was living off of coffee. You know, I was missing out on lectures, like, and at the time I wanted to be a doctor. So I was studying and then sleeping. Don't get me wrong, I still love a nap, but all I would do then is sleep, exercise, sleep, exercise,
You'd
sleep.
be tired and fatigued.
Absolutely.
There wasn't enough fuel in your body to be able to exercise.
Not at all.
So
it was just, and I think, and you know what, like, now I have zero issues whatsoever. Like, I will 100% say I'm absolutely fine. I don't have any of that remaining. And I firmly put into all of my clients that, you know, life is about balance. A life without cake is not a life I want to be a part of at all. But I can also pinpoint the moment that I started to get better. So I went home one weekend to see my dad and my stepmom, and my dad sat me down and was like, people ask me about you. And I was like, well, what do you mean? They were like, well, they worry about you. And I was like, holy shit, people actually give a crap. And it was that made me think, okay, I'm all right. Like,
really?
Yeah, it was that moment, and I can literally remember it. But all of that, like, I can't, even when I was at uni at Manchester, I can't tell you the name of the building that I lived in. I can't tell you, you know, what classes I went to, or there's so much. And same again, whether I wasn't fueled enough to be able to remember, whether it's just a time that I don't want to remember, whether it's just been, but there's so much from sort of, you know, 13 to 21 that I just have zero recollection.
Wow.
Zero.
I mean, it's scary, and it's also sad, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's like massive chunks of your life that
no idea.
But no recollection.
You can ask me, and I've got literally, even to the point where I've seen photos from when I lived there, and I don't remember it. I don't remember when it was. I don't remember what it was. I don't remember. I couldn't tell you what event or anything. I'm looking at it like I have no idea who this is.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just so. So then I probably started to get a little bit better. And then I started to, like, and by a little bit better, I meant I put weight on, but actually I went completely the opposite way, and I started to binge eat. I never made myself sick, but I just had zero control over stopping eating. And it was almost like anxiety. It was all, looking back at it now, having also suffered with anxiety, it was that feeling in the pit of your stomach that I was then trying to cover with food, because food wasn't off limits anymore, but I also had no way of understanding when my body was full, if that makes sense. So I actually went completely the opposite way and put on loads of weight, which then made my body image issues. And then I tried to do the same as what I did when I was anorexic, but I couldn't do it anymore. And then I'd feel like a failure, because I was like, how could I do it then? And I can't do it now. And it was just an absolute disaster. But then when I met my now husband, he moved in after a couple of months pretty much, and it was only maybe a year or so into living with him that I actually thought, do you know what, I'm okay now. Because living with someone else who loved me no matter what, but ate normally, you know, white rice was fine, like, do you want some chocolate whilst we watch a movie? But you can comfortably eat some, not all. And living with someone who, even when I ate lasagna, still loved me afterwards, or, you know, and actually my body as a result, yes, it gained a little bit of weight, but it gained muscle. You know, I was in the peak.
Because we used to weight train together 3 times a week.
Exactly. So I was fueled for it. And actually, I preferred that. I felt, you know, even now I feel stronger. I'm a hell of a lot fitter. Yes, I'm definitely bigger, but, you know, I was dead before. So, like, do you know what I mean? So, from an anorexia point of view, it was a fucking awful time. I remember literally just wanting to die. It was horrendous. I do not wish it on anyone. It was like I can't, like I said, I can't remember it. I cannot remember it, and I don't, whether that's because I wasn't fueled enough or whether I just don't want to remember it. it is not a time in my life that was an enjoyable experience.
No.
My entire life was consumed by food.
And for a really long time, like not just for a year. Like,
no.
It was for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, it was a good 10 years of my life. You know, maybe only sort of like 5 of those, 6 of those would you look at me and go, holy shit. But actually, for a lot of that, like I remember I lost like 4 kilos in a week once or something ridiculous, just because, you know, I was running around everywhere. But it was, and I know exactly why it was. I know exactly what pinpoint, you know, I know exactly why it started, and I know exactly what had the change. So, and I'm lucky with that because a lot of people don't know that. You know, mine had quite a root cause, so there was quite an obvious solution to it. It took a while to get to that solution, and it's only now that I'm out of it that I can really see that process.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't the easiest. And then I was fine for like a good few years, completely off antidepressants, you know, completely off everything. And then our granddad passed away.
Yeah.
And for me, even when I was anorexic, the main reason for it was, you know, I missed my dad. So when our granddad passed away, it was this immense, overwhelming feeling of, will the men in my life leave me? So I thought my other half was going to leave me.
Oh, wow.
But he wouldn't leave me because he would leave me because he's too amazing. He was going to leave me because of something I would do. So I had really bad anxiety to the point where, like, sorry, far TMI right now, guys, but I had to stop twice at a services on the way to a group exercise audition because I was going to shit myself.
Wow.
That's how bad the anxiety was. Like, literally.
Wow.
And over stupid things, like I'd watch an advert on TV about AIDS, and I was like, oh my God, I've got AIDS. I don't have AIDS. But I was like, holy shit, I've got AIDS. Like, Andy's gonna leave me because I've got AIDS. Or like, I'd watch, or I'd have a dream where I was like babysitting my 2 friends' kid, and I was like, well, because I've had a dream about another man, not sexual in any way, just made an appearance. Well, I mustn't love Andy then. Mustn't love Andy.
Oh, wow.
In my other half. Like, so, and, you know, I had a friend when I was like 18 who I used to think was really hot. And I was still friends with him, didn't think he was hot anymore. And I was like, but if he finds out that I thought he was hot, he's going to leave me. Because, and same again, now that I'm out of it, or when I came out the other side of it a little bit more, or when I got medication for it, I went on propranolol, which is a beta blocker.
Yeah.
So it's supposed to reduce the symptoms, so the tummy, the anxious, you know, the shakes, the sleep paralysis and things like that, which it didn't really do for me, but they put me on antidepressants as well, and that did.
That really worked.
That really worked to the point where I'm still on them. So I'm a full advocate in if it helps you, do it. If it makes you, because I wasn't me off them. I'd sit here with a person, I'd be so disconnected, I would have no idea. Like, there was no way I could connect. You know, I'd watch an advert on TV, or I'd watch a movie, and one tiny little thing would connect to another thing, which would connect to another thing, which would connect to another thing, which would be, my other half's gonna leave me.
Wow.
And it would be, so I stopped watching TV.
Yeah.
Like,
well, yeah, you would, wouldn't you?
I just stopped watching TV. So I went on antidepressants, went for CBT, and the CBT did actually really help me because I like to know why.
Yeah.
So it really helped me find the reason why, not necessarily the reason why because, you know, men leave me, but the reason why one connects to another, connects to another, connects to another, connects to another, because our brains are so good at connecting feelings but not at disassociating the reason.
Yeah.
So if you feel frightened, cavemen times, your fight-flight response kicks in. Now that fight-flight response kicks in whether you're frightened, whether you're sad, whether you're whatever.
That adrenaline surges.
Yeah, exactly.
For a realm of different things.
Yeah, so the bodily response can't disassociate. No. So your brain is very good at connecting to something that it knows. So it'll go from, you know, watching a TV about AIDS to, well, you know, you know, had sex once and it was unprotected, so maybe you've got AIDS from that, even though you've been tested since then, and your other half has gives blood every month or every other month, but it just all connects, and then you go, holy shit.
Yeah.
So
even if it doesn't make sense,
it just connects. And I think that was the thing, that I was spending so much time worrying about those connections that I just fully disconnected. So that flared up, and then I started the CBT really helped, the antidepressants really helped. I started to feel loads better. I was dealing with it all, I was managing it all, and then the pandemic hit, which for me was fucking awful. The first one, I remember sitting across an island like this with my other half, day 10, and he was like, you look like you're gonna burst into tears, and I was like, I am, because I'd gone from seeing 100 people a day, getting 25 hugs a day, being active, to having nothing. Now, I'm not a runner anymore. I hate running. I'll do it if I'm running with someone and it's sunny, I can get a tan.
Yeah.
But other than that, my association with running is weight loss.
It's a negative.
So I don't like doing it. And that was the only thing you could do.
Yeah.
So I just stay in bed. Like, instead, I just didn't. I'd literally not get out of bed until like lunchtime, and then I was like, well, what's the point? There's literally nothing to do.
Yeah.
I hated it. So then my anxiety started to flare back up again because I wasn't burning any of the extra energy off.
Yes.
All of that extra adrenaline that was coursing through my body, I was not using.
Yeah.
And I remember one night, 9 o'clock at night, getting some dumbbells and doing dumbbell curls, bicep curls, because I was like, I need to burn something here. So then so I stopped trying to come down off my sertraline then and just stayed where I am. And then after the pandemic, pretty much all right. And now I'm still on sertraline because, same again, I don't feel ready to come off of it yet. Don't feel ready at all.
But that is so good that you know that.
Yeah, I don't, because I know what I'm like when I'm not on it at the moment, and I do not want to do that ever again. It's just not worth it. You know, and there may be a time where I do come off it, fine. Yeah. But I am a firm believer in that if you have an iron deficiency, you take iron tablets every day.
100%.
You know, if you have a vitamin D deficiency, you take vitamin D. So we take multivitamins every day. If you have and that's all that, you know, sertraline is. It's a serotonin imbalance. So you're just replacing that. So, and me knowing my history from being like 7 years old and going, I hate my life, to all the way through everything that I've been through, it wouldn't surprise me if I just had a genuinely lower serotonin, you know, chemical processing anyway.
Yeah, like as your like natural base level.
Yeah. So let's bump that bad boy up, shall we? It doesn't make me more than who I am.
No.
It just makes me who I am.
Yeah, for sure.
And to be able to be a person that can connect and, you know, not shit themselves on a car journey.
And process.
Yeah.
Your day to day and your daily life and your weekly life and
exactly.
You know what I mean, as you go.
So right now, I'm still on it. Every now and then, like, it was funny how you said about what you said last week about waking up in the morning and having a bit of a panic. So I get that every now and then, and that's what makes me know that I'm still not ready to come off it, which is fine. If you have imbalances, I feel like antidepressants, and I've had this conversation with one of my clients, and she was really down, and I sort of said, really, really, really badly, and I said, well, have you been to the doctor about antidepressants? And she's like, oh no, you know, I don't really want to be on them. I'm like, well, why? Well, because I don't want to. I'm not depressed. I'm like, you could well be though.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and actually, if they help even you out to just cope with what's going on at the moment, because you've got a lot going on, you've just had 2 kids, like, you know, one of them's still only young. It was definitely a postnatal depression kind of situation. There should be no stigma attached to
absolutely not
getting a little bit of help, because the alternative is not getting the help, using something that's bad for you to help, you know, alcohol, other drugs, not getting out of bed, various things, or, you know, getting to the point where you can't cope with it anymore. Yeah. Which is where I was at one point when I was anorexic. So you've got to let yourself help yourself.
Yeah, and also, like, asking for help.
100%.
Like, even if you are having those you know, negative thoughts around like, oh, I don't want to take that medication or do it. Like, go and ask somebody for help, like their opinion, or somebody that's been there, done that. There are loads of like different groups 100%. Out there that you can go in, you know.
Guaranteed more people than you realise will be on something.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like more than you realise will be, because we've all got a lot going on, and having that little extra help, go for it.
Definitely.
Absolutely. And like, you know, I'm quite good in that, and I have learned to ask for help now. I will say to my other half or to my friend, I'm really struggling right now. And my other half has learned that when I'm having a bit of an anxiety attack, all he needs is just to cuddle me and I'm all right.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to ask me why, because half the time there is no real, you can't even find the reason why. Like, asking someone, why are you depressed? Well, because my brain says I am. Like, do you know what I mean? There's no real, there may be underlying reasons why, but we haven't got a clue.
Yeah,
like it's like saying to someone, like, why have you got heart disease? Well, you know, or why have you got asthma? I don't know.
I'm not sure. Like,
I'm not sure.
It
happened.
That's what's happened.
So yeah, ask for help. And like you said last week, having those moments where you have in your day little self-care
100%.
moments. So you know that when you're sat on your, you know, on your stairs crying, you're burnt out. I get sick. My body just makes me sick. Like, makes me poorly. I'll lose my voice. I'll be, you know, snotty, whatever. And I know at that point, that's when I've done too much.
Yeah.
But for me, my little snippets of self-care in the day are having a coffee before it goes cold. You know, sitting and having a coffee before it goes cold. I have a couple of gym memberships, because one gym I'll go to if I don't want anyone to talk to me.
Nice.
So headphones in, music that I really like, just leave me alone. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I'll go, if I need a little bit me time, I'll go to that gym rather than another one, so that I can train for me. And I may only be there for 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's something for me. Like, I get my nails done every 2 weeks, because same again, that is something for me. And I don't know about you, but in our industry, I am not putting makeup on. We're just not doing it. Hair is straight back. I mean, this hasn't even been brushed today, guys.
No, but, I look windswept and interesting, I'll be honest.
Yeah, but if my nails can look pretty, then I'm pretty.
Yeah.
And for me, I love a nap. If I can get a nap in a couple of times a week, I'm happy. I'm a morning person, so for me, if I wake up in the morning, I'm ready to go. Me having a nap in a day, I get 2 mornings in a day. I am so productive, it's unreal. So I love a nap, I love getting back into bed, eye mask on, get an animal with me, one of the pets to snuggle me, you know, and I'm there. But guys, whatever works for you, find what works. And you know our histories now, so find us on Instagram, find us on Facebook, you know, follow us on YouTube, Spotify. Drop us a message if you are struggling with anything that we've talked about: anxiety, depression, eating disorders, you know, whatever. If you're relating to some of it and you want advice or you want help, you know, we're not medically trained in it, but we've experienced it, so we can only offer our own experiences. And if that helps you, great.
And just support.
Yeah.
We might not be medically trained in it, but sometimes just to be able to vent to someone is all you need.
Love a good vent. So yeah, guys, tune in next time. Fit as a fanny, as always. We've not fully decided what we're going to do next time, if we're completely honest. If you've got any ideas, anything that you want us to discuss,
then let us know.
See you next time.
So yeah.